Hello, fabulous second graders. I'm back again with another chapter in 1001 Arabian Nights by Geraldine McCaughrean. But before I get started, you probably have some questions. Number one, did I get a haircut? No, as my dad would say, I got all of them cut. Two, how is Sir Tanley, my dragon, doing? He's just fine. I have lots of hot dogs, marshmallows, and dragon chow for him. And he and the rats are painting with slime and doing some jigsaw puzzles of famous dungeons. So they're having a great time. And finally, this one is for Nico. Nico, with all the free time I have actually thought about scrubbing the drama club paint off your desk, and maybe in the next couple of days, I'll actually get that done. Fingers crossed. All right, here we go. The next chapter of 1001 Arabian Nights, the Two Wazirs. A wazir is an advisor to the king. So the king has two of them. In the mornings, Scheherazade would often see her father standing in the courtyard with a silver tray. It was the tray on which he would one day carry Scheherazade's head to the king when she had at last failed to delight him with a story. The old wazir was as bent with worry as a blade of grass is bent by a wasp. If he raised his hopes, they would be crushed one morning, and so he stood there in the courtyard, helpless and miserable, and Scheherazade felt his sorrow as if she were carrying it in the folds of her own dress. Even King Shahryar took note, and he was generally as thoughtless of other people's feelings as the Arab is thoughtless of the floating ice at the world's poles. "Is your father sick, Scheherazade?" he asked one night, "for lately his face has become quite pale, and his hands shake whenever he brings me papers of state." "He has worries," said Scheherazade simply. "No doubt Allah will smile on him again in the future." The king's thoughts seemed to circle the old wazir for several minutes. "Scheherazade, it is normal for a king's wazir to pass his wisdom on to his son, so that the son can in turn become wazir to the king. What will your father do, since he only has two daughters?" "I don't know, king, master of all wazirs," she replied, "but I hope he finds a better solution than the king in the story of the two wazirs who was faced with the same problem." "Tell me the story, Scheherazade, and perhaps you will be of help to me, for it is I who must appoint a successor to your father when the time comes. Be my wazir. My wife, advise me." There was once a king whose wazir had no sons. So when the wazir died, the king invited candidates from all over his kingdom to apply for the post of royal wazir. If the light of their intellect shone too dimly, or their past life was dark with some crime or other, if their clothes were too colorful, or their imagination too dull, they were sent home with no more reward than the cost of their journey. And soon only two candidates remained, men of the same age, of the same height, of the same education, of the same reputation, men of the same standing in the eyes of Allah. The king could not choose between them. They were as alike in merit as two petals from the same flower. So he asked the same question of both men. "Suppose there were a king who found himself obliged to interview candidates to fill the post of royal wazir. Imagine that he found two of the candidates so equal in merit that he could not choose between them. Advise me, since you would have the position of my advisor, which should I choose?" The first applicant replied, "Why not choose both, your majesty? For as the poet says, 2 heads are better than one." The second candidate said to the king, "I would advise you to appoint both men, my lord, for as the poet says, why keep one dog when your kennel is big enough for 2? The king was delighted with their answers and immediately employed both men to be his wazirs. When they were introduced, the wazirs took an immediate liking to each other. "I can see that we shall be marvelous friends," said one. "Our lives will hold hands like dancers in a ring." "Oh, no doubt about it," said the other. "We shall be like 2 gloves on the king's hand, you on his right and I on his left." "I dare say," said the first, that our lives will now follow the very same pattern. We'll both marry ladies of the court and live in neighboring apartments of the palace. This kindred lifestyle so appealed to the second wazir that he said, I promise you, friend, that I won't even get married unless our weddings can be on the very same day. In that case, said the first wazir, who was fast becoming his firm friend, our sons can be born on the same day too. With ecstatic delight, the second wazir took up the story of their future lives. Oh, our sons are going to both marry ladies of the court, and we can arrange their weddings for the very same day. And then, having seen our children well settled in life, we can light our pipes from the same candle, grow old in the same hour, and die within the breathing of one breath. I shall see to it that when my son becomes wazir in my place, he will find a comfortable and well-paid job for your son. Pardon, said the first wazir. Did you say when my son becomes wazir, he will find your son a comfortable and well-paid job? Oh, no, my dear friend, smiled the second wazir indulgently, for I cannot imagine that the king or his heir would favor your son in the choosing of a wazir. Well, I can see no reason, said the first wazir, throwing back his shoulders, why the king or his heir or anyone with judgment would favor your son above mine. Well, because my son would be the superior man, oh ignorant, short-sighted friend. You're not suggesting, surely, that your miserable offspring could possibly stand higher than the shoulder of my handsome, honorable boy. What? Screamed the first wazir. Your runt of a son would not pass the elbow of my arrow-sharp, spear-tall son and heir, you frog-faced son of a tadpole. If we are going to talk of faces, said the second wazir, I can only imagine that any boy born with the evil fate of being your son would also inherit your evil looks. The poor lad. I have seen potatoes with better eyes and prunes with better skin. I'm not staying here to listen to the growling of a three-toed sloth like you, ranted the first wazir, and no son of mine will come within 1,000 miles of the smell of your children. I will see to that. And he stormed out of the palace in a passionate rage, which did not cool until his camel had galloped into the upper rift and forgotten the taste of Arabian water. When only one wazir woke the king with the chant of prayers and respectful greetings, the king asked, Where is my other wazir? The remaining one took great delight in telling the whole quarrel word for word, but his voice faded to silence as he saw the king's face darken with fury. Go to your camel and pack your bags, cried the king, trembling like a tree in heavy rain, for you advised me to employ both of you. Now I see that your advice must be as bad as your temper. Your counsel is as sour as your pride. When King Shahryar had heard the story of the two wazirs, he said to Scheherazade, I sometimes think when I hear your stories that your father should name you his heir to the robe of authority, so that you become the royal wazir when he dies. Alas, my lord, she replied jokingly, despite my youth, it seems that I will be dead long before my father, the wazir, or I might just prove to the men of Sasan that an ignorant woman is often wiser than a clever man. Then, unaccountably, a large ache appeared in the heart of Shahryar, and he could not smile at Scheherazade's joke. The next story will be the 2 lives of Sultan Muhammad. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, scholars.